A very good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all our audience for joining us from different parts of the world today for another session in the Sciative Knowledge Series. Welcome to today's session. Our distinguished speaker today is D. Keith Pigues, co-author of the best-selling book Winning with Customers, a playbook for B2B. Keith is widely recognized as a thought leader in growth strategy and marketing. His experience includes C-suite executive leadership positions. He has also served as a tenured professor of management, dean of the School of Business at North Carolina Central University. He has held executive positions in marketing and strategy at Cemex, R.R. Donnelley, ADP, and Honeywell International. Keith received his MBA from the University of North Carolina, Kenan Flauger Business School, and BS in Electrical Engineering from Christian Brothers University. Thank you, Keith, for making yourself available today and sharing your thoughts.
Anshu, it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Great to have you with us today. For the audience, you can follow the comments on Twitter and post your comments using hashtag Sciative Knowledge and hashtag Ask Keith. Towards the end, as time permits, we will take questions and comments posted by the audience. Once again, please make sure to include hashtag Sciative Knowledge and hashtag Ask Keith. Now, today our topic of discussion with Keith is winning with your customers, getting your fair share. Now, thank you, Keith, for choosing this very interesting topic. I'm sure there are lots in the audience who want to figure out how to win with their customers.
Absolutely.
Now, let's first start with your background and your book. Now, please share with the audience, why did you write the book Win with Your Customers, a playbook for B2B? Now, since this is a playbook for customers, for B2B customers, please also tell us, how is winning with B2B in B2B businesses different from winning in B2C businesses?
Okay, great, Anshu. Well, first of all, my co-author, Jerry Alderman, and I wrote this book because we both have been involved in the practice of business to business marketing and strategy for a number of years. And we'd begun doing writings and giving talks. And after one of our talks, we noticed a very long line of people who were standing to have discussions with us. And we said at that point, we should write a book. It's impossible for us to have the time and the opportunity to share with each individual person. So we would be better served by writing a book. And literally, that's when we decided to write a book while standing in a line answering questions after a presentation at a conference. But moreover, we wrote the book because we really believe that there's a big opportunity for companies to think differently about how they create and capture value for their customers. And we also believe that there was the absence of a true playbook that helped people think through and apply the thinking that they could use in their own business. And we wanted this to be a book that people would not read and pass on to a friend or a colleague, but a book that they would read and keep near their side to use and practice every day. And the reason that I think it's important to distinguish between B2B and B2C, because in the B2C, the business to consumer world, there are lots of approaches and tools and systems available for people. But in the B2B world, we found that there were certainly only a few of them. And so we wanted to focus on B2B, and predominantly because there is not a lot of data available in B2B, as you would find in B2C. And so what we propose and offer in the book really provides a way for B2B to have its own approach to winning with customers and quantifying the value proposition, which leads to better pricing and other applications, but it's designed specifically for the B2B world.
Great. You rightly said there are not many data points available for making informed decisions in B2B pricing and designing the value proposition as much as that are available in the B2C world. And also there's a lack of models or shortage of models, and we hope your book bridges that gap. Now, you did mention this term value proposition. So let's shift gears a bit and talk about value proposition. Please tell our audience, don't all companies have a value proposition? Why is it so important?
In the marketplace, customers make decisions about doing business with you, continuing to do and repeat business with you. They make decisions about whether they're going to do business with you versus a competitor. They make decisions about what they will pay for your product or service, all based on the strength and the differentiation of your value proposition. So your value proposition, in my view, really is everything. Now, this value proposition is really steeped in this concept of the value exchange, which is what we really address in the book, getting people beyond the qualitative description and discussion of the value proposition to a more meaty qualitative and quantitative value. So let's face it, when people make decisions in B2B to buy your product and service, they don't do that because they just absolutely love you and absolutely love your product or your service. That may be true, but at the end of the day, they have to decide whether your offering is going to help them make more money than if to do business with your competitor. And in fact, on the cover of our book, Winning with Customers, a Playbook for B2B, we ask what we think is the truly seminal question. And that question is this: do your customers make more money doing business with you? And what that really does is get to the heart of the matter. It asks the question about your value proposition. Do you have a truly differential value proposition that results in a quantitative differential impact by helping your customers to grow their revenues more so by doing business with you, or to help your customers decrease their costs incrementally by doing business with you? And what delivers that is your value proposition.
So your value proposition essentially is key to making sure that your customers make more money with your products and services, and hence it's the most important part of your approach. Now, you mentioned that organizations need to get beyond qualitative approaches and adopt a quantitative approach. Do you have a recommendation here? Most companies struggle in applying quantitative approaches in interpreting their value proposition. So would like to hear your thoughts on if there are any quantitative approaches that organizations can use.
Yes, I think probably the most important part of the work we've done and what we share in what Jerry and I share in the book is really around quantifying your value proposition. And we introduced in the book this notion of the differential value proposition, or DVP. And it really is the way to quantify the differential impact that your value proposition has on your customer's business, versus the alternatives. And it's a simple, yet not simplistic calculation. But if you were to think, for example, think about a customer that you've done business with, and you look at the business you've done together in the year, 12 months. If you can identify those things that you've done that you really believe have a differential impact on their revenues or their costs, like the quality of your product, your technical service, your customer support, your ability to provide assurance of supply of the product or service where your competitor may not be able to assure a certain level of supply, et cetera, et cetera. So you think about what those individual, what we call value attributes might be. for each of them, then you can calculate, you know, the incremental impact on the business. So for example, if you use the assurance of supply, if you in the last 12 months have been able to fulfill orders with very short lead time and meet the customer's requirements, and you've done that 100% of the time, where your competitors would only be able to do that, say, on 70% of the time because of their supply constraints. If you can quantify the either cost impact differentially or the revenue impact to your customer by being able to supply their needs 100% of the time versus the 70% of the time that your competitor can achieve, that gives you some incremental financial impact. If you take the sum total of the financial impact across all of those differential value attributes, there may be 3 to 5, over a 12-month period, and you divide that by the total amount of sales that you have done with that customer over that impact of your differential value over 12 months divided by your total sales. That gives you the quantification that you really need to prove the strength of your value proposition, to quantify your competitive advantage.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of merit in your approach where you're suggesting that organizations should identify the value drivers and the incremental impact on clients' businesses. So definitely, if you're able to deliver products in shorter lead times, or the quality of your products helps save customers time or improve its revenue, you have a stronger value proposition in comparison to your competitors. And then figuring out the cost impact and the revenue impact and summing it up across all the different value attributes and extrapolating it to the annual impact and then translating it into a per unit impact is the way to go. Now you mentioned identify the cost impact and revenue impact. Now different customers will have different cost impact and revenue impacts of your stronger value proposition. Also, a lot of this information is internal to your customers. How should companies get access to this piece of information?
Okay, well, first of all, you're absolutely right. The specific value of your differential value proposition will be different from customer to customer. And so the work that we do really begins with a customer as the unit of analysis, right? And that's important for a couple of reasons. One, you want to ensure that you don't have a generic value proposition that works for groups but does not work for an individual customer. That's really important because if you consider 5, 10, 20, 50, 100 customers, your competitor could be very different from customer to customer. And all of our work is based on that value, differential value calculation relative to the next best competitive alternative. And that next best competitive alternative may change from customer to customer. However, as you're able to capture data points for similar customers, like customers in a value-based segment, you're able to take multiple data points and then begin to extrapolate that differential value and the impact to other customers. So that's very, very, very important. And what was the second part of your question again?
Well, the second part of my question was that a lot of this information is internal to your customers. So how do you get access to this piece of information?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And that's a question that many people that we work with ask. And it's because I think that traditionally when this information or this type of information is sought, it is sought either in the context of a market research study or in the context of a sales call. And so we're very careful to say this is not about a sales call. It is not about a market research study. It is about an opportunity to partner with your customer and to gain insight about how you can help your customer make more money doing business with you. So the positioning of the discussion is very important, very important. And it's an opportunity for your customer or your client to talk about his or her business and how you've helped them in their business to achieve their financial and other objectives. And so what we find is that there are people who are very excited about talking about this and giving you the feedback with the goal to help you serve them better in the future. Again, to help them make more money doing business with you. The other thing I would say, which makes us a little different, is that we don't go into a discussion saying, what's keeping you up at night? What are your problems that we can solve? A lot of work is done to develop a hypothesis of the differential value proposition. So identifying and developing the quantitative impact of each of these attributes that we talked about earlier, doing that homework. And so when you go into the meeting, you're actually presenting your hypothesis, the work that you've done, and you're using that as a basis for feedback and discussion. And what we hear over and over again from our clients' customers is, we really appreciate the time and the effort that you've spent to learn our business and to understand our business and to have a perspective about how you are helping us. That's very helpful.
Great. So you mentioned that companies should dedicate efforts and need to work with their customers in getting this information from the customers about what would be valuable for them, and explaining to them that it's not just I'm just trying to solve your problems, it's actually I'm helping you win, and the better I understand your business challenges or your key focus areas, the better I will be in a position to serve you. Now, is there a particular organization structure that companies should keep so that they can do this process on an ongoing basis? Do you think this is something that companies should do once in a while, or would you suggest companies do this on an ongoing basis, set up an organizational structure that allows them to do this repetitively and keep updating their information? And if there is a separate organizational structure, under which business head would it be best? Would it be a best fit?
So our clients approach it in a variety of different ways, depending on their level of resourcing, depending on their organizational structure, the size of their organization. So let me give you a few examples. Before that, I will answer a part of your question very directly. Absolutely, we believe that this is something that should be done on an ongoing basis with your customers. Absolutely. The cadence depends on your organization, but generally we recommend an annual basis. And most organizations have some form of an annual review with customers. And I would encourage organizations to embed this into that existing annual customer review or customer checkup. Now, having said that, I think there are multiple ways based on our clients' experiences to embed this in the organization. One model is developing a center of excellence, where you have a group of people dedicated to implementing, managing these engagements, if you will, much like an internal consulting organization. Now, that requires a level of investment that some companies cannot afford to make. So that typically works well for companies that are larger and that are very well resourced. Other companies will receive training of people in their organization to conduct what we call the validation interviews. And rather than developing a center of excellence, they develop a pool of people who conduct validation interviews, but the actual ongoing work on a regular basis would be done by the account team, absent a center of excellence. So again, it depends on the organization, but whatever the organizational structure is, I think performing this work on a regular basis, we recommend annually, and then preparing your people to do this. Our fundamental philosophy is that this is a capability that should be embedded in one's organization, and that one should learn to do it in the organization and do it repeatedly. It should be a way of doing business. Where we have found in terms of the positioning of this effort and these resources, we found them in a marketing organization, a corporate marketing organization. We've also found them in a continuous improvement organization within a company. And we've also found them in the sales organization. So whether it's sales, marketing, or continuous improvement, what matters most to us is that it does have a home where the capability can be built and deployed across the organization.
That's an excellent advice for our audience, and I hope our audience has taken notes. And for our audience, I will summarize your points again. Make sure that this exercise is embedded in the annual customer reviews. And in terms of the organization structure to carry out this particular exercise, there are two approaches that organizations can take. Either they can embed this in one of the existing organizations in the company, and it could be the corporate marketing team, or it could be the continuous improvements team, or it can be the sales organizations. It doesn't matter where it exactly sits. The important thing is that the right information needs to be captured and information needs to become available so that it can be acted upon. And the second area where this information, where this organization structure could fit, is to have a separate center of excellence which is dedicated to managing these engagements. And many large corporates have set up these sorts of organizations. That's an excellent advice, Keith. Now, I would like to hear your views on pricing. How can this information that companies collect about the value that is being delivered by their differential value that is being delivered by their products and services is saving money or getting extra revenues for customers, how does it translate, or how should it translate into an actual pricing process?
Well, one of the things that is gained in the development and the validation of a differential value proposition is clarity around where you are delivering differential value beyond what you thought, beyond what you included in your hypothesis. B, where you are delivering differential value that is lower, less than what you thought in your hypothesis. And then thirdly, areas emerge during the discussion where you're delivering differential value and you had not included it in your value proposition. You were unaware. So if you just think about those three instances, each of those has a direct impact on pricing. So where you're delivering more differential value than you anticipated, that creates an opportunity to understand to what extent you're delivering differential value beyond what you thought and how you might consider sharing that differential value with your customer. That has an impact on pricing. So all other things being equal, you should be able to capture more of the value you're creating. In the second instance, where you are delivering less value than you anticipated from your hypothesis, that should give you some pause and ask the question, are we indeed overpriced? Or at our current price, are we headed for a loss of business? or the loss of a customer, because clearly our current pricing and value proposition are overstated. And in the third instance, where we find regularly our clients' customers will identify elements of value, of differential value, that they're receiving that our clients have not incorporated into their existing value proposition. So hence, they are leaving money on the table and delivering significant value that they're not, that's not being accounted for in their pricing. That also should give some rise to a discussion about whether we should increase our pricing. So those are three things that we find on a regular basis, and they all have direct implications to pricing.
Absolutely. Can you share some examples from your previous experiences and engagements where you have taken such approaches in quantifying the value proposition and translating it into success factors for the organization? Can you please share some examples?
Sure, absolutely. So one example is with a chemical company. And what we found was that they have tremendous products. They provide tremendous service from their local representatives who manage the relationships with their customers. They have incredible technical service and support that they provide from a central organization. And with some of their customers, they believed that they were delivering significant value from the product. It was a fantastically performing product, and they were right. However, some of those customers believed that the value that they were receiving from those products was even more significant than our clients estimated. And in fact, there really was not a close second competitor. Now, compounding this, the pricing decisions were being made by the local representatives with some oversight and approval by sales management, but there was not an effort underway to look at the organization more broadly to understand that there was a significant gap between the value that was being created and the value that could be captured. So the first recommendation that we made and the first action that our client took was to take a look at their pricing in accounts where this product was delivering significant value. And as a result, now they are moving their pricing north. They are increasing price, and they're doing it with much higher degree of confidence because of the data we were able to capture with the value proposition assessment qualitatively and quantitatively. And they're also able to target that price increase to that value-based segment where that product truly is outperforming in the marketplace versus the next best competitor. So that's a very direct application. The payback was very significant. But what we also do is beyond pricing in terms of the opportunities for impact in our recommendations. In fact, there are 7 areas that we focus on, pricing being one of those. You might imagine that with this type of engagement, you're also able to better engage with what we call key beneficiaries of value, to move beyond procurement, to move beyond maybe only a technical buyer. Because when you begin to estimate the financial impact of your value proposition on your customer's business, you want to ensure you're speaking with a person who can truly provide validation. So I'll give you another example. So this same client provides chemicals that are used in tissue manufacturing. And so as you think about the properties of the tissue that are derived from our clients' chemicals, then you would ask the question, how does their customer really get value in the marketplace? Well, you would need to talk to a marketing or operations. It's actually an revenue. Well, the person who's going to validate that is probably a marketing leader or a sales leader. But they found that they were having a significant impact on the properties of that consumer product. Prior, they'd never really considered the impact of their value proposition in that way. We also take a look at areas like value-based segmentation, and we make recommendations around how to improve segmentation, customer segmentation, based on value proposition. We also have our clients take a look at an innovation and growth pipeline, because one of the things that we do is we ask a question that actually is covered in the book. That question we call the checkbook question. So after we've assessed the current state of the value proposition, we ask our client's customer, if you were given our client's checkbook today, and you could write a check, a list of things that you think would bring significant value to your company, what would those things be? Where would you make those investments? And that delivers a short list, sometimes a longer list, of customer-driven growth and innovation opportunities. And what we find is that a high percentage of those customer-driven growth and innovation opportunities that are surfaced during the engagement are very different than the internally developed growth and innovation opportunities that our clients have underway. And so we're able to bring an outside-in view and perspective and input from our clients' customers. And so we are able to help fuel or replenish that customer-driven growth and innovation pipeline. So that's another of the areas. So I'll stop there, but all of those are examples that where we were able to help support the growth strategy of one of our clients.
Okay, like to have your views on how can companies use today's new generation technology tools in better gathering this information from their customers. Any recommendations here?
Could you repeat that for me, please?
Sure. Any recommendations for organizations to use the technology tools available in the markets for connecting with their customers and getting better information on what's valuable for the customers, what would help them win with customers?
Yeah, so that's a very, very good question. So I think that it's interesting. There are certainly some tools that could be used in the marketplace, but I think there is no substitute for in-person, face-to-face discussions. And what we've learned, and I think what our clients have learned, is that while in some areas technology can be very helpful, that there is no substitute for face-to-face discussions. And so the things that our clients have learned in these face-to-face discussions about their value proposition and testing, if you will, their hypothesis has been, and I believe a lot of the information that was gained, the insights that were gained, would have not been gained. They would have been lost in translation using technology. And so I think there are places for technology, absolutely, but I think that in many instances we've moved away from one of the most valuable modes of communication, which is face-to-face, in-person discussions with our key customers.
Absolutely. So there is no substitute for face-to-face discussions, and while technology tools are available in the market, companies should not get lost amongst the tools that are available and make sure the resources, both people resources and technology resources, are being used wisely. Great suggestion. I'm going to take questions and comments that are posted by the audience on Twitter. So we have a question posted by Sanket Majumdar, and he would like to ask you, he's asking you to please share some tips for startups to become customer centric with limited resources. Well, this is a startups
Absolutely.
world, and startups want to win their customers as well, and that's the biggest challenge. And I can see they have limited resources also. So, would love to hear your views on this.
Okay. Anshu, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you. Okay.
Okay. That's a very good question. Let me say, first of all, that I think startups are actually probably organizations that are in the best position to do this. What I mean by that is what we find with some organizations is that the management team and others have become so far removed from the original intent of the business or the company and have in some sense lost sight of the strength of the value proposition. However, in a startup organization, your value proposition and its differential nature is really all you have. So here's what I would suggest to the startup company. I would say take your value proposition, the specific attributes that you think truly are differential, the why you are in this business, why you decided to bring this new solution to the marketplace. Take each of those discrete reasons, 3 to 5 of them, right? And as best you can, quantify what you think the impact could be on your customer or your best estimate out to target customers and get feedback. I think it is the best form of feedback you can get at that stage of development of the company, and it probably will be the most insightful. And if you learn something about places where you have maybe overestimated value, areas where you've underestimated value, or areas where that you may have not included or ignored that are critically valuable for your prospective customers, it will help you to reshape your value proposition and your strategy early on before you're too far down the road in the marketplace. And if you get a copy of the book, Winning with Customers, a Playbook for B2B, again, it's a playbook, and it will provide kind of the step-by-step approach that you can take in doing so. So hopefully that will be helpful to you.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you that startups are best positioned to work on this particular aspect about identifying what is the value they are bringing to their clients, and I think that should be the sole objective of the startup also. The reason for their existence is because they are trying to fill a gap in the market. They're trying to deliver a piece of value to the customers that they cannot get from the existing services that are available in the market. And in that regards, startups should already know what their value proposition is, and they should communicate with their customers and revalidate whether the customers are recognizing that value, their value proposition or not, and then work on quantifying this piece. Now, on the same subject, there is a recent comment posted on Twitter by Mr. KRD Praveen, and his comment is startups have issue of identifying value they are offering their customers. How should they go about identifying the value they're offering? What are your thoughts on this, Keith?
Yeah, I think that the comment would be very similar to the comment to the last question. I think you have to develop a hypothesis. You have to have your best guesstimate. The way that we have found some organizations do this is thinking about people in the industry who know the most about the current competitive set of offerings and work with them to determine where there may be an opportunity for your offering or enable an opportunity or to improve significantly upon available. And if you find people who are currently buying or providing or rather will compete, they will have probably the best point of view. Also, we found people who use consulting organizations, like the GLGs, right? The organizations that you can contract with for a very limited cost, who actually bring in experts in your with a given technology or a given industry, who can serve as information sources to help you. So there are lots of resources available, but I will tell you that what we have found to be the most challenging, not only for startup organizations, but also for large Fortune 100 companies, is this: the lack of humility. And it grieves me and pains me to say that, but what is true of the organizations that we have found that get the most value out of this work are organizations who bring a healthy bit of humility to this work and recognize that no matter how successful they may have been in the past or how successful they are today, that the customer actually has a better view and understanding of your value proposition than you do. And in some areas, you could be a little bit off in terms of your estimates. And in some cases, you might be absolutely wrong. But you have to be willing to ask the question and have the humility to take action.
That's a great point, Keith. Having humility and recognizing that customers are the best judge of the value that you're delivering to them. So you can't tell customers this is what is valuable for you. You have to understand from customers what is it that's valuable for them, and then make sure you are able to address those pieces. Now, I think the startup piece is generating lots of interest in the audience. We have another question. This is actually posted on YouTube by a gentleman, Dhanpat Raj Dhariwal, and he has put a very interesting question. And his question is, for new startups, what special efforts are required to win customers? And I think his point is focused on the initial set of customers that you need to acquire, where your value proposition is not yet proven in the market. You don't have success stories to back your value proposition, and you have a new idea. You're going to a customer who has absolutely no idea about what you're talking about. So how should startups that are providing new products should handle these types of situations?
That's also a very good question. What I would say is that, I think this startup in particular has to do the heavy lifting to identify the right potential customers to engage early in the process. And here's what if in fact you are working that are very, I'm not sure if the caller got all of that answer, but in short, with customers or prospective customers that have a lot to gain, and they would be willing to assume customers who are stayed, see the potential from your offering.
Great. Pete, we have another question posted on Twitter, and this question is posted by Mrunmay Mhatre, and she would like to know, if my customer is unhappy with my products or services, then how should I regain such customers?
Repeat the question. I only got a part of it.
Okay. The question is, if my customer is unhappy with my products or services, then how should I regain such customers?
Yeah, so one of the things that's very interesting that we found is that this approach can be used in a number of situations, current situations with customers. Certainly, it can be used in a situation where you have a great partnership and you want to use this approach to build upon and sustain that partnership, that good relationship. In other instances where you're trying to enter into a new relationship with the customer, it's a way we believe to accelerate the customer engagement with having a discussion around the potential value proposition. And in the third instance that your caller raises here, where the situation's not good. So this is an opportunity to have a discussion focused on the value proposition and a quantitative impact on the operational metrics and the financial results of your customer. And so you're able to take the emotion out and really focus on the value proposition and its impact. And that will take you down the path of doing a few things. One, finding the specific things that may be broken with the value proposition, so specific methods to fix it, and having everyone understand why it's important from a financial perspective. You will also find areas to improve where you could generate even more value by making some improvements. And then thirdly, you'll find areas that to expedite, meaning things that you're doing well and your customer suggests you should do it more often or more of them. And so I think, again, the latter of the three situations where there's a problem, that's a reason to do this. And you might find those three different outcomes, things that you fix immediately and things that you're doing that no expedite.
Absolutely. Again, the value message always needs to stick, and it's important to continue to identify where things are broken. Are we missing out certain pieces or certain opportunities to add value to customers, and make sure the message on the value that your product or service brings to them is emphasized again. Now, there's another very interesting question posted by Sheetal, and what she would like to know is, we've been talking about getting feedback from customers, understanding what's valuable for them. And I think it's in this context, she has posted this question: how to meet individual customers' expectations without excessively increasing costs?
Okay, could you repeat that for me again? My apologies.
How to meet individual customers' expectations without excessively increasing costs?
Well, you know, the value proposition at its core is all about value exchange, as I shared earlier. And so I think the first question should be, if I understand your question correctly, the first question you should ask yourself is, am I delivering things of significant value to my customer? Have I been able to quantify the value? Is it truly differential versus the next best competitor, right? And the question becomes not a question of cost, value. So I think we can move beyond the cost discussion if we truly understand and can prove value. And then the customer has a decision about whether or not they really want to acquire that differential value that only you can provide. And it should move the conversation away from cost, and maybe not immediately, maybe over time, but certainly it gives you the basis for a value-based discussion.
Absolutely, Keith. That's bang on. I'd like to go back to the title of your book, where it reads as winning with customers, as opposed to make your customers win. Can you share
Yes.
what's your thought here?
Yes, the title was very carefully selected because this really is about being collaborative, about winning together in the marketplace. And unfortunately, what we find is that some organizations believe in winning in spite of their customers. Some organizations seem even competitive and are attempting to win against their customers. Everything's a fight. Some organizations believe they know it all, that they're smarter than the customers, and they want to win without the customer. But this is about winning with the customer. Working together to develop a full understanding of how value is created and coming to a fair assessment of how that value should be shared amongst both parties, and understanding that when both parties win, you truly have a sustainable relationship. And so winning with customers, we believe, is the way to long-term profitable growth and sustain profitable relationships with your customers, with a never-ending continuous improvement loop of improving your value proposition more and more and more, such that your customers are better off and that you continue to capture your fair share.
Absolutely. So organizations need to operate in a collaborative mode with their customers, and goal is not just to make more money at the cost of customers or bleed money just so that customers can be happy. It should be a fair play, as you've rightly mentioned in the title of the talk also, and both the parties should win in the process. Well, time is almost over, Keith, so I would like to thank you for this highly informative session today. I'm sure the audience will take several tips from this session on how to approach value proposition and pricing, and I'm sure many of them will work on these aspects in their businesses.
Well, thank you. A pleasure to be a part of your program today. You've got a fine program, and thank you. I'm honored to have been a part.
It's our pleasure to have you with us today, Keith. This knowledge series is conducted by Sciative Solutions. Sciative helps companies compete and grow profitably through its suite of scientific pricing solutions and services. Now, for the audience, please keep checking sciative.com for future sessions in the Sciative Knowledge Series. Our next session is on July 11th at 10 a.m. Central Time, and our speaker is Adrienne Gordon, and she'll be talking about opportunities and pitfall in gathering and leveraging competitive pricing intelligence. Thank you for joining today and hope to see you in our next session. Till then, goodbye.